everybody and welcome along to Watercolour Wednesday. Here we are ready to create our seashells today. I'll be back on screen in a sec. I'm just sorting out the laptop. Say hi, let me know where you're watching from today. Be great to see your names pop up on my screen. And the more you comment, the less time I've got to spend on the laptop scrolling down. So great to have you along on this beautiful, beautiful summer's day, creating our summer scene of a seashell. So 24 of you live at the moment. Let's see who else is going to join. Say hello. Give me a smile. Ah, there we go. Hi, Anne from Ipswich. Diane's on. Painting the shell for your dolphin. What a good idea. Diane did a dolphin with me. Sorry, someone's trying to get in my door. They come to the wrong building. They're looking for doggy daycare, whereas I would love to have all the doggies in here, but they're in the wrong place. That's next door. Hi, Audrey from Zurich. Welcome from Zurich. It's like Eurovision Song Contest all over again. Let's not go there. So hi, Carol from Evesham. Patricia from Ohio. Wow. Hi, Patricia from Ohio. I've been to Ohio. I have family out there. I've got, I did have an auntie and uncle. I've got a cousin and second cousins in Ohio. Fabulous. So we're going to do this little simple seashell today. Well, it seems simple, but there are some tricks involved. Now, somebody made a comment that they thought I might use masking fluid. Hello, Leslie from sunny Northumberland. Shropshire, Christine. Leslie from Northumberland. Yeah, I think I've read that one, haven't I? So, yeah, I'm not actually using masking fluid, but you could potentially use masking fluid, which is this sticky stuff, or drawing gum, as they say in America, to protect some white parts of the shell. But we're not going to do that today. We're going to use control, self-control, to manage the white areas of our seashell. So let me just tell you what I'm using. Hi, Leslie. I think I've said that as well. Gosh, I'm going senile. So I have 300 GSM paper. Now this is my own paper. I sell these pads. This is a little A5 one, really good for small sketches, or you can get it in A4. And it's made in conjunction with St Cuthbert's Mill, Bockingford. Really good 300 GSM paper. I sell it in a bumper pack of 20 sheets, okay? So check that out on my website. So that's been taped down and stretched. I do have a video on how to stretch your paper on Facebook. If you're not sure how to do it, just pop back onto my video section and you'll see a little demo as to the method that I use to pre-stretch the paper. So that's stretched and taped down to my board. I've not drawn anything yet. We're going to do all of this together today. Colour wise, very simple colour palette. I'm going to be using golden ochre or yellow ochre. I'm going to be using, I can never say this word, quinacridone magenta, or any magenta will be fine. But to be honest, guys, you can paint your seashells any which way you wish. And I'm also going to use a little bit of Friends Grey or Payne's Grey, or an indigo blue would also be good for some of the shadow areas in the shell down the bottom. And then we're going to have a bit of fun with the background. Now, if you're at home, go grab yourself some salt. It can be table salt or sea salt. I've got a mixture here in this pot. I've got granular salt and some regular table salt. And we're going to throw that into our background to see what pretty patterns we can make form. So, brushes. My trusted size 12 watercolour brush. And I've also got out my dagger brushes. Let me show you these. So these dagger brushes you may not have used before. You don't have to have them, but I'll just show you how I'm going to use them today in the seashell. They're a good brush to have in your kit. If you haven't got any, again, I sell them set free on the website. Pop over after this, of course. Don't go now because you've got to be watching me, but later maybe go and have a look what I sell. Oh, someone just made a donation. Thank you so much. So someone supported me. Thank you. Your name didn't pop up. Let me see if I can see who that was. 2 of you have. Fabulous. Okay, thank you very much. So if you like what I do, those of you that are regulars already know you can support me by buying me a coffee for £2. Okay, so I've got my HB pencil. Let's get started, guys. And we're just going to start off. Now, an easy way to do your scallop shell is just to take your pencil around. So I'm trying to hold my wrist still. And I'm going to come around the other side now. And come round the fan shape of our shell. So we just want a nice loop coming over, tapering in a bit at the sides or out a bit at the sides. And then we're going to scoop down that scallop shell and come down to that middle section. Okay, nice easy shape to sketch. Doesn't matter if it's totally symmetrical. And when we come to this bottom end, I'm going to flatten out. And if you sketch nice and lightly, you can, go over your lines, refine them a little bit, get them how you want them. Then we can go back in and create the scallops. So just coming around that shell, creating that pleated kind of edge. Just wiggle in and out with your pencil. In fact, you don't actually even have to draw this. You could just go straight to paint. If you were feeling really brave, you could go straight to paint. There we go. So I'm just using that line that I sketched lightly as my guide, and then I'm coming round creating that scallop edge. Good evening from India. It's 5:30. Ah, lovely to have you along from India. It's great to have so many international people joining us for Watercolour Wednesday. So now I'm just erasing. I'm going to get my small eraser. These are really good too. I don't sell these. But these small erasers where you can get into the nooks and crannies. There we go. Just getting rid of the pencil line I don't want. Leaving my scallop shape behind. That looks pretty. Okay, we have a shell. Oh, there's more of you now, 37 of you. Wonderful. Welcome along, everybody. Okay, so we're going to paint the shell first, and then we're going to paint the background. I'm not going to put these little bits at the bottom this time. I'm just going to do the shell in a flat format, okay, like this. So, where am I? What am I doing? Who am I? Where am I? Okay, water first. Just clean water, and I'm going to come in my shell using the very tip of the brush to come around the edge. I want to work wet into wet, so I'm pre-wetting that area inside the shell. Don't worry too much if you accidentally go over the line. You can adjust. There we go, just wiggling around the shell. And then I'm spreading that water down. I love working wet into wet. It's a really nice loose way, and you don't end up with hard lines. So the whole shell, I'm just tidying up that edge. Go slowly around that edge with the tip of your brush. Sorry, I'm looking down at this bit, so if there's any comments, I'll miss them. There we go. Lovely. That's nice and wet. I don't want puddles. I just want it damp. So I'm just going to leave that a second whilst I mix my colour. Now the first colour I'm going to put on is this kind of, you can see the picture. Oh, excuse me. Let me just drink some coffee. The picture of the shell is down in the corner of the screen, okay? So I'm going to take some water. I want nice pastel colours, so I want my colours weak. More water, less pigment. I'm going to take my golden ochre and pop it in that puddle. Touch more water in there. Remember now, you've got water on the page and water in your well and on the brush, so 3 times dilution. And I'm going to come from the edge, just using the tip of my brush, going into those what's the word, scalloped edge, just popping my brush down like you was making a print and dragging towards the middle. I'm only going to come so far, coming down, because now this colour is going to spread out in the water. Leave a nice gap between your marks to allow for that paint to spread out. This is very light, okay? Take a little bit more of my ochre, some more water, and now I'm going to come in the other end. I'm going to start at the bottom, just tap down a little bit of colour in the base of your shell. In we go. And I'm just dabbing that brush against the paper, creating a little puddle, moving it around with the tip of my brush. I've got quite a bit of water going on, so I'm just soaking some of that up. And now I'm going to come up to meet those marks. So I'm going to come from the bottom out. Let's just make that a little bit creamier, mainly so you guys can see what I'm doing. So starting at that base and fanning out up across the shell, creating those ridges that we see in the surface. This is very pale, very weak colour. We're going to get stronger as we go on. I find coming down to the middle much easier to make sure I've got the lines fanned out. So I put my marks along the top and then I come into the middle. Okay, let's mix up a slightly stronger colour. So I'm going to put a bit more pigment into my puddle, clean the brush, and then I want this to turn this pinky colour, but not too pink. So I'm going to take my quinacridone magenta, there we go, I said it, and pop that in with my yellow ochre or golden ochre. And you'll see the colour change. I'm just going to pop a little bit on the page so you can see. And I'm just going to tap on with my brush just one side of the scallop shape, the curvy bits around the edge. Just getting a stronger colour at that top end. Every time I paint a shell, I do them slightly different. It's good to have a collection, different colours. So just coming along the edge of that scallop, wet into wet. You will see your colour soften and bleed out into the wetness of the colours underneath. Just tapping it on, not moving it far, just letting it sit around the edge. You got the granddaughters doing it with you, 9 and 7. That should be fun. Be sure to post their pictures in the comments when they're finished. Okay, I'm going to take that same colour. Remember, that's my magenta mixed with the ochre, and I'm going to come into the bottom of my shell. Look at this motion. I'm just tapping to deposit some stronger colour, little tiny puddles of colour down the bottom. I'm just going to zoom my camera in a little bit for you guys. Bear with me 1 second, just while I find my zoom button. And just bring that camera, whoops, a little closer. Something strange is going on. Oops, too close. There we go. That's a bit better. Pop that down for you. Okay. So, we're going to start bringing some more pink in now. Let me show you this beautiful magenta. Now, the colours that I'm using, these are my own handmade watercolours, which I sell on my website. Now, they are expensive, but they are professional grade, pure pigment. This is the jar of pigment, I hope I don't spill it, that I use when I'm making the paints, okay? So pure pigment, honey and glycerine is pretty much all that goes into my paints. Now look at that magenta. Look at the strength of colour. It's just so pretty. I'm tempted to use it as it is, but I'm not. I'm going to go in and take some of this yellow ochre and pop in there just to take it a bit more orangey. Okay. I'm going to come across the band, the stripe that runs through the middle of the shell. Now this is where I'm going to switch to my dagger brush. They come in different sizes. I'm going to use my small one. Pick up some of that magenta and ochre, and I'm going to come in to this band of colour. My paper underneath is still wet, and I'm just going to pull that back. Now dagger brushes are really thin. They're fat one side and really thin like a dagger on the other. So they allow you to do these small areas. Sit back from your work so you can see where you're going with your pattern. Now sometimes this paint is going to hit dry paper, and other times it's going to hit wet and it's going to bleed, and that's what I like to see. I like to see the variety of marks that you get when your brush hits drier paper. And this dagger brush, I'm holding it on its thin edge. Now you can use your normal brush on its point, but this way I know I can get a really thin line if I just want a thin line. They're really cool little brushes to have. As I say, a good thing to add to your watercolour kit. And just coming around, popping on, leaving some gaps in between. Coming around my little shell, creating that pretty pattern. There we go. So we're getting that lovely fan shape. Okay, I'm going to add some of this lovely colour down the bottom as well. Now this time, I'll show you another use for the dagger brush. I'm popping down, just using it on its sides, deposit that magenta and yellow ochre. I'm going to wipe the excess paint off my brush, and then using the thin edge of my brush, I'm going to come into that paint and drag it along those lines up the shell. So I'm using the colour that's already down on the paper and just picking it up and spreading it up to create more patterns, more ridges in my shell. There we go. Fanning out as we go. Okay, I like this magenta. You know what? I said I might change my shell. I'm going to come in again with my little dagger brush along that edge, the scalloped edge, and just add a little bit of pink over the top there. My paper's still slightly damp, so I'm going to just want to strengthen it really for you guys at home so you can see the colours a bit better on the screen. Just come in one side of those scallops. Can you see how that colour's just bleeding out and softening into the shell? It's a really soft look. Okay, now if all your paint has merged together and you've lost the white bits, let me show you what to do. Take a bit of tissue and just a clean damp brush, not much water on it, tap it on your tissue, and we're going to lift some colour out by dragging our brush through the paint and wiping it off. Drag through slowly and wipe off, and you can bring some highlights back into your shell. Now this is a very light colour that I'm using here, so you're probably not going to see too much on the camera. Sometimes you have to go over a couple of times and you can lift that colour out. Okay, next then, who's that? Watching you, Eunice, thoroughly enjoying your demo. Oh, Jean, you're doing so well with your paintings, Jean. Okay, I'm going to come in again. I'll go back to my normal brush because I know you've not all got a dagger brush. And we're going to add a darker colour. So I'm going to take some of my burnt sienna, that's this orangey brown, and I'm going to drop that in with my pink. Let's just play with these puddles of colour. A little bit stronger, and then that's looking too orange for me. I want to tone it down. So to tone it down, I'm going to add the tiniest bit of blue, ultramarine blue. Pop that in there, and that will just take the edge off and make it more of a grey brown. Touch more. There we go. I'm going to bring another pattern along, just tapping my brush against the paper. A little bit darker, a bit stronger colour. Again, following that fan shape, just following the top line. That's your guide. Bringing this on, coming round, round we go. And a touch more, round the other side. Now don't panic, watercolours always dry back lighter than when you put them on. Okay? If it looks too dark, I just want you to tap in with a damp brush and just lift off. Use your brush like a little sponge and soak up a bit of that colour. There we go. It's that pretty fan shape on our shell. And putting the darker colour on will also help between the dark and the light areas on your shell. Okay, let's carry on. I'm going back to my magenta because I love it so much. With a little bit of yellow ochre. Gosh, I thought I heard someone talk to me then. That's very bizarre. Mixture again, that same mixture. Touch more magenta. And now that my marks are drying back, I'm going to add a little bit more pop of colour across that ridge. Just drop in here and there. A bit of stronger colour. Let it bleed in. I'm going to drop some more at the bottom as well. That bottom edge. Okay, let's bring some cooler colours in now. Let's bring our blue. I'm going to use, you could use indigo, you could use Payne's grey or Friend's grey, or Prussian blue would be good too. I'm going to use my Friend's grey, which is my own mixture, which is a really dark bluey grey. Okay, but Prussian blue would be good, Windsor blue would be good. I'm going to tap that in to the bottom, the darkest area of my shell. Down that bottom flat area that holds the shell together and keeps the clam safe. Actually, I've changed my mind. I'm going to add some Prussian blue. Bit of Prussian blue as well. Drop that in. Nice and neat. Okay. Now, if you haven't got a dagger brush, the other thing you could use is a smaller brush. Your smaller brush. Okay, and we're going to come into that colour that we've deposited, and we're going to drag it up again. Use your thin brush or your dagger brush on its side, go into that colour and bring some of this blue across the shell, up the ridges, just pulling from the centre and fanning up, taking that colour from the bottom. So you've always got some paint there that you can go into to drag up the shell and fan out. And it gives it that look, it's getting that three-dimensional look. Okay, a little bit more. I want some more Prussian blue. There's the Prussian blue, look on its own in my pot. I'm going to bring some of it really finely along the side of some of the ridges. Just flick through very gently. Your brush is almost hovering above your paper, okay? You want such a gentle touch. Just coming down the sides, emphasising and bringing a bit of that blue into your shell. And I'm going to add a touch more here. Now my paper's dry now, almost dry. And I don't want these lines to look too harsh. So what am I going to do to soften them? Okay, so once your lines are on, wet your brush, get rid of the excess on a tissue, and then just repaint over those lines very softly. And what we're doing is we're softening the paint, we're giving it a little bit of water for it to bleed out into. Just softly bring in some water over the top, allowing that just to soften back so the harsh lines disappear, becomes a lot more subtle. Now I'm going to switch brushes again. I'm going to go to my small brush with my Prussian blue again, and I want to strengthen now. When we did the bottom, we put all that blue down and then we spread it out. We've diluted the paint because we've used it. So I'm just going to drop in, again, there's that word, dropping in, I love that word, into the bottom of the shell, my Prussian blue. Now these colours are going to be mixing with the colours underneath as well. Now I'm using this straight from the pan so it's more concentrated, and because this is a darker area I need a darker colour. So on my tiny brush, again, just flicking out, following those bands, coming out from the centre of our shell and up. So we get a bit more definition down the bottom. They are lovely colours, aren't they, Martina? Really pretty. Okay, I will add just a little bit of Payne's grey now, right in the bottom. Little bit of Payne's grey. This is wet into wet or wet into damp, so I can see those lines a bit clearer down here. The paper's damp, so I'm not going to end up with my line too solid. Okay, using your fine brush again, I'm going to take my Prussian blue with a little bit of grey. Just add brown to your blue if you want it a bit grey. There we go, nice mixture. Add some water. You want this kind of creamy, not really thick, but just fairly strong. And I'm going to come around the edge of my shell. I've got the wobbles. Just come along that edge that's near to the sand. And the other side. Coming along the edge. I can use this to tidy up my shell as well because it's a bit wibbly, a bit wobbly. but I don't want a hard line. I want that to soften in. So add some water to the edge of the colour you've just painted. One brush. Just add in some water again, giving that paint somewhere to bleed into and soften gently. There we go. I'm going to add a little bit more shadow to the sides with a bit of diluted Prussian blue and a bit of grey. Give it a bit of shadow. Now that's looking pretty cool. I'm quite pleased with that. Now then, now guys, remember, I love to see what you've done. So please, as much as you're commenting here, when you're finished, whether you do it today or tomorrow, post your pictures up so I can see them. Right, I'm going to grab my hairdryer now. Whilst I'm drying this, I'm just going to play you a little video. It's slightly out of date. One of the lessons on the video was last week, so ignore that because I haven't had time to edit it. I'll just play that whilst I do the hair drying, and I'll mute myself. Okay, I'm back. So that's nice and dry now. I'm just going to check that I've unmuted. I have. I'm always scared I'm going to forget to unmute. Okay, so that was just a little look at some of the paid classes that are coming up over the coming weeks. Again, just go to the class booking on my website if you want to book any. Okay, so I've dried off my shell. And I'm going to use clean water or cleanish. I'm going to come all around the edge of the shell. Okay, wetting the paper. Now this is why it's important to stretch your paper first. Otherwise you end up with bumpy, lumpy paper that has buckled. So remember, just look on my videos if you're not sure how to do it. And you will find a couple of weeks ago, maybe a month ago, I did a little impromptu broadcast on Facebook Live showing you how I stretch my paper. So check that out. So I'm wetting behind my shell. And we're going to have some fun with some salt in this section to just wet where you want it to end. I like to have rather rough edge. You don't want any puddles, you just want it damp and glistening. There we go. And now let's go and put some colours in. I'm going to mix my yellow ochre or golden ochre. I'm going to drop some water in there to dilute it. I don't want the background strong. I just want a subtle background, so a bit more water. And I'm just going to drop this colour in and around the shell. Just very loosely. I'm not painting every area. I'm just bouncing that brush around, having some fun. That's what it's all about. Imagine the lovely little greetings cards you could make doing seashells. And all the different types of shells you could do. So I've got my sand, and now I'm going to take that lovely Prussian blue or Windsor blue, dilute it again, nice and light so it doesn't detract from our shell, and in we go. And I'm adding this into the gaps, over the top of the yellow, just letting it have fun on the paper. Where it hits the yellow ochre, it's going to look a little bit greeny in places, because we're just allowing these colours to blend. I'm just dancing my brush around on the paper, moving it, blending it. Come around the edge of the shell, a bit tighter. There we go. So we've got that lovely mixture. I'm going to go in with a little bit more yellow ochre. There we go. And where the paint meets the edges, it's just going to blur out into the water. Now's the time for some fun. Take the salt. I'm going to make it just a little bit darker. 1 second, guys. Bear with me. Bear with me. I'm going to take a bit of my Payne's grey and add a bit of shadow at the bottom. Let's add a bit of shadow coming off the sides. Just tapping that grey, Payne's grey in beside the shell. Touch more. A bit stronger. I just love watercolours. Watercolour Wednesday. Now we're going to take our salt, pick up a pinch and sprinkle it over your painting, into the paint. The kids are going to love this. Now your paint does need to be wet. I'm going to put quite a bit down. Whoa, crazy lady. Okay, now the other things you can could use rice, anything that's absorbent. And what we want is to get the effect of sand. We want little pigments of colour to pull together to give us the effect of sand. And hey, why not? Let's add some splashes as well. So I'm going to take my Prussian blue again, pop it into the water, nice wet brush. Hold your brush parallel to your painting. Be careful of your shell, you don't want to splash your shell. And tap down. Just tap your brush whilst that's all still wet, over the salt as well. And just create a pretty pattern in the sand. Let's do a little bit of yellow ochre as well. Load that brush up and just hold your brush level with the paper and tap it. Okay, just give it a little tap. Now some bits might go on the shell, you can lift that out. What I do want to do, whilst the paper's still wet, because I like fiddling, I'm going to bring a bit more of a shadow under the shell, just around that edge, and just tapping in here and there into the water, into the salt. A bit of my Payne's grey. I'm not going all around it, just picking some places where I want the shadow a bit stronger. There we go. And it makes the shell pop forward. It's touching in. No hard lines. Okay. Now then, I'm working in my studio, so it doesn't matter if I make a mess. Some of you, like Deb, are working with their granddaughters. What are your granddaughters' names, Deb? So I can say hello to them. Be lovely to know their names. I'm just bear with me whilst I wait for this to dry. Because I can use the hairdryer, but it's going to blow the salt everywhere and it's going to spoil the effect. So what's happening with that salt is it's sucking up the water because it's porous. So it's going to suck the water up and it's going to leave, hopefully, hopefully, that's my daughter, silly girl, ringing in between the lesson. Hopefully it's going to leave little marks, little patterns in your paint, okay? So be patient at home, let it dry, and then blow it away. I can't be patient, so I'm going to use my hairdryer on a gentle setting and try not to disturb the salt. Wish me luck. Very gently, it seems to be working. Okay, now I'm going to blast it. There we go, guys. I'm going to take a soft brush and dust off my salt and hopefully reveal, yes, it's worked. Wonderful. I'm making a mess all over the floor of my studio now. There we go. Some of it needs a bit of a rub because it likes to stick to the paper, especially the finer salt, the table salt. And we've got that wonderful mottled pattern in the background. Now ideally I should have let that dry on its own naturally, but you can see the patterns that happen in your own work. Okay, just to finish off, I just want my shell to stand out a little bit more. So I'm going to take some of my burnt sienna and a touch of yellow ochre. I'm just going to increase the colour around the edge of the shell on the sandy area, coming over the blue that I put down earlier. Really make the shell be the focal point, and when you add more paint, remember to also add water around the edge. Touch more burnt sienna. And again, I'm not going to do it everywhere. I'm going to pick some places where I want that shell to stand out, taking that burnt sienna around the edge and then a bit of water for it to bleed out into. Touch more down this side. There we go. Now anyone that's interested, the dolphin class is tomorrow evening. I did one session yesterday and I've got another session tomorrow. So if you like this summer scene, this seasidey theme, then check out the class. It's just £10. I'm just going to grab the one I did yesterday. I'm trying not to knock my wires out. Oh, here we go. So we used salt again. Now you can see the pattern better that I got yesterday around my dolphin. And there's another one. So it's only, the lesson will only last about an hour and a half max. But if you fancy having a go at that, just check out and book online. I've got a new booking system as well. So I'm just taking this burnt sienna a bit more around the edge, but being sure to allow it to spread out. I don't want an outline. I just want a darker shadow around that edge. You know what? It's because I don't want to go. I want to stay with you guys painting. I do have some other jobs to do today, sadly. There we go. And one seashell. Last place that I'm going to fiddle with is the bottom of the shell because it's not standing out enough. So I'm just adding some more Payne's Grey, Friends Grey over that bottom section to make it really pop out. Come a little bit along that edge, right on the tip of your brush. There we go. Our seashell, waiting to be found on the beach. Thank you so much for joining me. Remember to share your paintings with me too. I'm just looking at that on the screen. I'm going to quickly add a bit more magenta. I want that middle section to pop. I won't go, will I? I won't go. Touch more magenta. And I'm softening it with a little bit of water. There we go. That's better, isn't it? Do you like? Touch of water. And we're done. I'll leave you to the rest of your day. Thank you for your support. Remember, go into the comments and you will find the link to ko-fi.com to treat me to a lovely cup of coffee. And I hopefully see you the same time next Wednesday for Watercolour Wednesday. Take care and keep painting. Bye for now. Bye.